Okay, everything should be fine. Yes. So, as I told you last time, we will start finishing the example of the that we were working on last week. So I just moved everything in the new week folder. We are in week 11. Okay, so just a copy of what we finished. I mean, what I pushed, committed, and pushed on Thursday. Okay, so just in a new directory because we are in a new week. Okay, so this is the schedule for this week. That is, as I already told you. So today we are going to finish the example. We will start talking about authentication. Tomorrow you have a lab, which have been already published. I sent a message on the Telegram. So if you want to start doing things, I mean, you can already start, especially after today. And then on Thursday we will do it with authentication, and I will, adapt the example. I mean, making it ready for authentication. So it means I will already provide some code like APIs, I mean, fetch and so on, already ready to be used in the classroom, because otherwise it takes too much time, okay, developing everything from scratch. And next week we will talk about OTP and considerations about authentication in general. Then you remember that the text of the first exam will be published. We will not have a lecture on Monday, the 2nd of June, because it's national holiday, and we will have a last lecture at the end of the course on Thursday, where we sum up everything and we develop an example together, similar to, I mean, actual an old exam, okay, that was given a few years ago, okay, thinking about what she should do for the exam, okay. Okay, so let's proceed with the example that we were dealing with on Thursday. So as usual, I start everything and make sure everything is working. Okay, so the server and the client, let me make it a bit bigger. Okay, npm run dev. Okay, open the browser, and you see that, I mean, what is implemented here is the loading from the server. See, we load the question and we load the answers with the response coming in JSON format. Okay, there are only 3 answers. We can copy and copy the file of the database, overwriting the actual one if you want to have more. Okay. And then the only feature that is working with the server is the delete, okay, because we said the delete create an action, okay, so a request toward the server that get a response, and then we reload the list of the answers from the server. And in fact, if we reload from the server, we only see 2 answers, okay. If we add a new one at the moment, it just added on the client. Okay, so things are working because of the previous, what we did previously, but if you reload, I mean, it's not there, okay, because it's not stored on the server side. So let's make the add and delete functionalities work today, okay, in the first hour and a half. So, I mean, we proceed as we did on Thursday. So what we need to modify is basically app. Okay, you remember that in app we first introduced a use effect that loads the answers. Okay, and it runs when, well, actually, Thursday we discussed this dirty state variable that we introduced because we think it's very useful in many occasions, including now, today, when we are developing add and edit functionalities. So we said, there's the N client problem. We need to refresh the content of the client periodically. And a good time to do this is when you do modifications on the server. So you request modification on the server, so you require an update of the status of the server. and you take it in the application, so you rehydrate the application, as we said in the slides. Okay, so let's try to make I would say the add work. Okay, the add first. I mean, not really big difference, but you know, add answer. Okay, at the moment it just add something in the state set answer, so that's a state of a state, and take the old value and it adds something at the end. It creates a new array. Okay, so actually we need to communicate with the server that we want to add the answer, right? So at a certain point we have this API file where we have put everything inside, all the communication with the server, so the fetch, and there is a add answer that we are now going to see. Okay, add answer is here. It just does, I mean, what we already prepared in previous lectures, right? So week 4, I think, more or less. Post answers with the body and with the content of the new answer. Okay. Remember that you have to, set the content type application JSON, but you already have this file, right? So, and communicate in JSON format. So it means you take an object from the application, and you simply do JSON stringify, and everything works because the stringify takes the object and converts it into JSON format, which is basically a string. Okay. Just make sure that the date has the correct format, the one that you want to use to communicate with the server. Because when we have objects, object cannot be represented in JSON. Okay, you can only represent the strings, numbers, and booleans, null, and I think that's all. Okay, so you have no possibility to represent objects. If you let the code do something automatically, you don't know what is going to happen. Okay, and then it can also break down later in case the people change the way in which a library works. So just make the conversion explicit. In this case, the only problematic field is the date, and we just specify the format in which we want to transmit it to the server. Okay, and the rest of the code is the same. I mean, it's just code that handles potential problems in the response from the server, expecting JSON and so on, and basically distinguish between two cases. If there is a 200 something in terms of HTTP status, it means that the request was successful. So we added the item to the list. Else, there can be an error, and in this case, if I get a message, it's fine, and I will use this message in the application, probably showing it somewhere. Okay, we can make a test at a certain point. So even the message can be communicated through JSON, okay, depending on what you've written on the server side. Okay, but let's start with a simple thing. So when you get a 200 response, you resolve the promise, okay, because we have made this function to return a new promise. We resolve the promise, and we give back the ID in this case, okay. No, ID. Actually, I'm not sure. We will check in the code. Okay, we should look in the server. What's this ID? Because I mean, this is just the name of the variable. Not really sure. I have a doubt. I mean, in case I have a doubt, either I run the code, or better, maybe I have a look at the code. Since I wrote it myself, right? So try catch and so on. JSON new answer. Indeed, I returned the actual answer to the whole object. Okay. So not just the ID, so it would be better to fix this. I mean, new answer, okay? Answer, resolve answer. But this is just a matter of the name of the variable that we used here in the code, okay? Just not to get confused, but I mean, the code runs whatever name you give to the variables, right? So, okay, so add answer. We need to pass an answer. And actually, the answer is the one that is passed here to this function, right? Then then is actually the correct word, right? Then, because it's a promise. Let me search the name I used, add answer. Yes, then what we are going to do, again, I mean, we could reload the stuff as we did on Thursday. So the list of the answers, okay? But there is already a place where we can load the content from the server. Actually, I introduced this dirty that we saw just before, just to force the execution of this use effect to take place, okay? That's one of the possibilities. Another one could be to write a function, okay, that loads the data and set the state, and just call it from every event handler, okay? You can even call it from the code of the use effect. That's a possibility, okay, without using a state. I think it's a very common pattern, so I think in this case it's fine to use a state, okay? Oops, what did I do? So then we need to pass a callback as usual. Set dirty true, okay? And then, well, actually I didn't write any catch last time. I mean, at the moment, let's say, I mean, R console log R, okay? We will fix it if we have time, okay? You have the console where you can print things, especially when you are developing, when you are debugging, okay? Good. So, let's see, no, before that. You remember that we implemented this optimistic update on Thursday. When I delete something, it becomes, you know, the changed color becomes red in this case. And then I load the updated list from the server and I get the updated list. Okay? So I get a sort of confirmation of what happened on the server because I synchronize the state with the server. Okay? I can do the same here. So how does it work? You remember that in the answer components, in the answer row, we introduced this status class that basically add a class name that gives the style, so the background color to each row. Okay? So I have 3 classes already prepared, and that's the added one. Table success, I think it's green, if I remember correctly. So I can add the status property to the element that I'm adding. Okay? So answer list is fine here, but we need to add it to the I think that's one of the possibilities. We need to add the property to answer before adding it to the list. Okay, don't forget that if I open the curly bracket in an arrow function, I need to return the value explicitly. Okay, so answer dot status added. Okay, save. Let's try. So let's just start from scratch. Add something. A, B, C, D, E, and add. Okay. It doesn't go away, so there's something missing. I don't know. Question not found. Okay. So you see why it's important to have the debugger, the inspector open, because it's useless that you spend so much time on the code and you don't know what's happening. Okay. Also for the lab, also when you are developing for the exam and so on. Of course, something is not working, but what is not working? Did the server get the value? Was there an error in the response from the server and so on? Well, that's the network tab. It's so easy to inspect, right? You see the post and the 404. 404, that means, I don't remember. Yeah, let's check here. 404, not found, okay? And actually, that's a request, and the response even say error, question not found. Okay, so why? Don't know. Let's check on the server. Okay, so I have a rough idea. Okay, but you see this question ID, right? Which we didn't have before, because actually we didn't care that much in the structure. I mean, in the memory. The structure, the data structure we had in the memory in the client, because there was only an answer. A few answers attached to the same question. Okay, so actually I forgot to tell the database this answer should be attached to a certain question. Okay, because the database handles more questions and more answers. Each one is attached to a question. Okay, so there should be a question ID set. Okay, when I go to the database and add this answer to a certain question. Okay, that's how I structure the database. Again, the database is something that you structure yourself for the exam. So we don't give a database schema for the exam. You're free to use whatever you think is appropriate. Of course, it's your responsibility to find a reasonable, good solution. Okay, and so table answer as ID text respondent score date and actually question ID. Yeah, question ID. Okay, so we need to send this field to the server. Actually, I must tell you, I didn't validate the question ID field here, right? So, this could be something that can be added. Okay, question ID is int, for instance. Okay, not really strictly required, but helps you to debug things. If you have validation for the field that you are using in your functions on the server side, it's easier to debug. This message was quite good in a certain sense. Question not found. Okay, so it makes me think, did I connect it to the right question or not? And actually, question was not found because if you look at the code, actually rec body question ID doesn't give you an error, but it's simply undefined. So it was looking for a get question with the value undefined instead of 1. Okay. So let's rerun the test. A, B, C, D, E. Okay. Yeah, now we have 422 because that's what it's returned by the validation error. Okay, so it says type field invalid value. Okay, which field is it? It's question ID. This part question ID in the body. Okay, so let's fix this. So let's go back to the application, and added is nice for seeing the green stuff, but actually there's something which is more important. Question ID is, what's the question ID? Question dot ID. Okay, what is this question? Actually, this question is the state here. We have a state question which contains the information about the question, including the ID. Okay, so the user is not supposed to add anything about the question. It's implicit in the user interface. Okay, the user can only add answers to the question that is being shown by the app. So it's the app's responsibility to add this field, because that's the question we are handling now in the application. Okay, so let's try again. So let me save. Yes, I think yes, this has been saved. So when you mess a little bit with the application at a certain point, restart the application. It's much easier. Okay, so this confirms we only have one answer on the server because the others didn't go through, right? Okay, because there was a problem. So let's try to add something. A, B, C, D, add Okay, now I got it right? So if you go on the server, by the way, I mean, everything should match, right? So if you have a look at the database, yeah. No, this, I think you need to, is this the correct file? Yes. It takes a while to refresh, okay? But yeah, you see it in the database as well, okay? Okay, good. So basically we handled the addition of a new answer, right? Right, pretty easy, right? Okay, let's try to edit. Do something for the edit. Okay, now negative scores are invalid. Okay, that's something we should decide. Okay, but anyway, you see the update here, but actually that's not what is on the server. Indeed, there was no request toward the server, right? So if I reload the content, it's not on the server. Okay, so let's make the edit work as well. And then we will try to fix all the things that we left behind, like error handling and stuff like that. Okay. Okay. So, I mean, the thing is more or less the same for as for the add, right? So we have edit somewhere. I think we called it save instead of edit, but it's fine. Okay. So again, API edit. No, what's the name? Update answer. In this case the name is answer dot, then it's a promise, right? So just set 30 true. Okay. Yeah, let's forget for the catch for the moment. Okay, and then we will fix it later, because I mean, of course you can just, well, let's put it. Okay, I changed my mind. Okay, I mean, console log is so easy to put. I mean, just put it, and then we'll try to fix it. So now we have the situation as before. We added something, we go to the server, and we need to update the situation on the server. Okay, so now this time the question ID probably is not present, because the answer already has a question ID, because it already exists in the database. So if we have everything implemented correctly, there's no problem in the data contained in the database. When you start, you made sure that the integrity of the database is safe, okay, is preserved. Okay, so here we don't need to add the question ID, because the question ID should be there already. What we need to do is, I mean, add this status to make the row colored, okay, to have the background color on the newly added answer until we get the response from the server. Okay, so actually, if ID is equal to the answer ID, and we just don't include the answer as it is, but I mean, we can create a new object with the answer. Okay, I can do object assign and so on. Sometimes I do in a way, sometimes in another way. So we also rehearse a little bit JavaScript. Okay, and that's a property status, which is to be set at updated. Okay, yes, save. It's updated. I'm not sure. Let's check. Answer component, it's updated. Okay, fine. Okay, so let's try. Save. Reload the application. Let's edit something. Like ABC, D, yellow, and then white. So it's fine. Okay. Okay, good. Yes. So that's more or less implements the edit and add functionalities. Okay. There's still one functionality I forgot to mention, which we should connect to the server. You remember we can change the score, right? So actually, now the score is changed, but again, only on the client side. You see, no request towards the server, but we have the API, and this information is stored in the server, so we should implement this as well. Okay, so let's try. So I think it's the vote callback. Yes. This is a sort of immediate request for which, yeah, I mean, we should decide how to handle it. We don't open a new page, but I think it's fine to handle it as the delete one, right? So we just click on the button. There's not a new page. And so in the same way, we can handle the up and down, okay? Of course, at the exam, when you start developing your solution, you have maybe just a little idea of how the application should work, and until you implement something, you don't really know. And so every time you do something, think about what the user should do. I mean, what's the best thing to do for the user, for the usability, and so on. Find a reasonable compromise. If you are in doubt, you can ask on the Telegram, on the chat. There will be a chat for each exam. So I mean, we cannot say you need to do this way, the other way, and so on. But if you have a doubt, you want to implement complex things and so on, if they are required or not, for sure we will answer you, okay? Saying, well, this is actually indeed required, or I mean, this is not really required, okay? And if it's not required, it means you don't get additional points. So, I mean, try to save your resources to work on the important things, okay? Okay, apart from this, let's go and implement the vote. Yes, vote. Where's the vote? Okay, so we already have the API again. So set answers, API, vote answer. What does it take? The ID, okay, and the delta, okay. And the delta was set by the button, +1, -1. Okay, it's just a generic API. .then again. .then as before, set dirty true, catch error console log error. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I want to show it's being updated as well. Okay. So E is course and so on. So just an additional field, the status, and we say the updated, right? Yes, updated. Okay. So just try. Okay. So take the second one, update I mean, actually increase the vote by 1. So up by 1, click. Okay, green, and you get the post vote. The request is vote up vote. That's a protocol we established a few weeks ago. Okay. And the response is just, I mean, number of lines modified, I think. If you are unsure, just go in the server code and check. Okay. So index, there will be a vote. I think it's down. Put post ID vote. The vote must be in the setup vote down vote, and then you need to specify the ID as well. Okay. So that's what is received by the server, and indeed you can check what you are sending. Well, so actually an object with just vote with the value upvote in JSON format. And what is the ID? Well, the ID is in the URL of the request. Okay, this 5 is a bit small. Okay, but you can see the ID there. How do you get it from here? Well, because you had the column ID. Okay, column ID means there's an ID somewhere in the request, and Express looks for it automatically, Express validator as well. Okay. Well, actually, I said the wrong thing. Express validator looks for it automatically, but you need to know if it's in the params or in the body. Okay, so the vote was in the body. It's in the body of the JSON. So in the JSON, and the ID is in the params. So that means in the URL. Okay, it's fine. Okay, good. So, I mean, everything is working, right? So, I would say we are almost finished, right? Not really. Okay. Yes, that's a question. Good.
What's happening if we vote 2 times?
Yeah, 2 times. I mean, without waiting, you mean? We'll try. Yeah, we miss 1 click, right? So that's not that good, right? Yeah, that's a bit unfortunate. We need to think about how to fix it, right? Because we said upvote. Yeah, upvote. Okay, upvote. Okay. Yeah, and the point is that, you know, the point is that if we reload from the server, you get a 5, right? So it's an issue in the client. First of all, you need to think, I mean, you need to determine if it's an issue of the server or the client. And when you are developing, it's easy. I mean, the application now is working, so you can just reload the application and see the server status. Otherwise, you go, you know, in the Visual Studio Code and inspect the database. Actually, I mean, a clue for this is, I reloaded the application, sorry. Well, let's do the experiment again. So let's clean up the network tab. Click, click. You see, there are 2 posts with 200. So it means that, I mean, why the database should not have updated the value twice? Should work, right? So it's an issue of visualization. Okay. So let's keep it for later. Okay. Yeah.
If we do another change, like adding something now after there is 7.
Adding something? Yes, of course. Yes. That's the whole point. Okay. You see, it was 6, and then it goes up. It went updated to 7. That's the whole point of, you know, synchronizing the status with the server at a certain point. Okay, not really in this case because we are the ones who initiated the operation. So actually, it would be nice if, you know, you see the result of your operation, right? But I mean, updating the status from the server is useful because somebody else could have upvoted the same answer as well, provided that the logic of the application allows for this. Okay, so any user, when we will have users next week, can upvote any answer. Okay, so loading from the server is always, let's say, a guarantee that you are synchronized with the server. Yeah, we need to think what to do in this case. Okay, so to avoid this this situation in which we send a request, but actually we are, I mean, the request, the response comes slow from the server, and so we don't issue a second request for updating the state at the end. Okay. We will think about this later. Okay. Let me focus on what we left back. Okay. So there was this issue of what to do when there is an error. I mean, we don't expect for the exam that every possible error in any condition is handled, but at least, I mean, a reasonable way of handling error is expected, okay? Not just a console log, okay? Console log is fine, but well, we have nothing in the console at the moment, but let's create an error. Actually, the same error that happened before, like, you know, the add answer, I just forget to set the question ID, okay? So let's see what happens. So add A, B. Okay. So now it stays there, right? So, and you see, don't be worried about the fact that the console gets these red messages. These are normal, especially next week when we'll have the authentication. Sometimes you are not logged in, so it's fine. I mean, this one is not good in the sense that we need to handle it because, you know, there is a problem adding the answer, right? And it's not expected, okay? So, if you wrote the server correctly, as we did, hopefully, okay? Not on the vote, but on the add. Yes. So you get this error message. Actually, the error message now is coming from the validator. Okay. So the question ID int, and here there's this errors array. Okay. I mean, up to you to decide what to do with this error. Okay. I'm in favor of printing some information, and I will give you a piece of code that more or less works if you keep with, I mean, if you return the error in the way in which I showed you in the example. It's just a matter of, you know, consider the possible cases and so on. So let's do a bit of cut and paste. Okay, so it's better if you prepare a function like this one, handle error. Okay, I will cut and paste here. Is this the week 11? Yes. Try not to mess up with the code. Okay. So handle error. Handle error is a function that gets an error. I mean, in the form of a string, an object, and so on. I mean, an array, etc. More or less, it handles what it can happen. It relies on the fact that there is a state where you can write something. Otherwise, without the state, you cannot show anything to the user, right? So we need to add a state. I think it's after dirty here, right? Yes. So, and then use the function, of course. Oops, error message. Yes, that's the name. Set error message, like we did in the forms. Okay, use state, and typically it's a string, so initialize it with the empty string. And then we need to show it somewhere. So let's try to show it somewhere. I think the best place is in the routes. I think in the route where there is, yes, the list of answers. Of course, we need to make sure that the component handles it. Okay, yes. So let's go in the component. Where is the answer route? Answer route is here. Another file. It's no, it's in up. Sorry, so just above. Okay, answer route. Okay, so return what? Well, either the list or no. I mean the list stays there. Just we put something in addition in case. So props error message is set, so it's not an empty string. We show something. I think the easiest thing to do is, you know, create an alert, just like a banner. Okay, so row call. I mean, just for consistency with the rest of the code, alert. Yes, I think it's no. There's a message inside, so error message. Okay, just make sure alert is imported. No, so it's not. Otherwise you get an error in the console when you are executing the code, but I'm trying to save time, but I mean that's another error somewhere else. Yeah, I think what's the error? Ah, yes, I forgot the colon. Or you need to show something. I mean, there's nothing to show, so null, undefined, any value it doesn't create an output is fine. Okay, so save. So let me start it again. Yes, no complaints, so good. Error message, actually it's a variable, sorry. Okay, so let's just try the application again. Okay, you can develop many things and then try and debug, but you know it's difficult, right? So well, B, C, doesn't matter. Okay. Oh, okay, we didn't use it yet, sorry. So this can, no, this, we leave it open. Okay, we close this stuff and we open up JSX. Yeah, it's already there here. That's the same file. So the add handler, you see, it was not used. And where's the add answer? Okay, so catch handle error. Okay, save. Should be like this. So you just call that function, and that function does, you know, a lot of operation to determine where the useful information about the error is, and then just set a state. So it will re-render with the alert. Okay, so let's try. So A, B. No, there's something wrong, sorry. Yet. Error message is not defined. Ah, props error message. Can be tedious sometimes, right? Well, but in any case, we need to go up and fix it in any case. I think it's props. Let's pass the prop, right? Sorry. B. Okay, invalid value. Okay, that is the answer that we got here. Okay, message invalid value. Not so useful. Maybe you can add, I mean, in your own code, you can add a path like question ID or whatever. Okay, path, I mean this name of the attribute. Okay. Anyway, that's an invalid value. I'm not really sure why it's. Ah, yeah, because it's not a danger. It's, I mean, that's a default call. Okay, so and then how do I make this disappear? Well, actually, there's no way, right? At the moment, there is no way. So, I mean, but you know how to create an alert. It's not that difficult. So let me, just finish the example. Okay, so variant danger. I like the red when there is a problem, but I mean, this is just. I mean, nothing really special. Dismissible, we saw a few weeks ago talking about for. So there's a cross that appears. You can click on that, and you can attach an event on that click on close. On close. And what are you doing? I mean, actually, you need to, reset the state, right? So again, how do you reset a state which is in another component? You need to pass a callback. Props set error message, okay? And you reset it in the sense you put an empty string inside, okay? But it's a callback, right? I need to put empty brackets, okay? And I still need to pass it. Set error message, copy, go back to the routes, set error message equal to set error message. Save. Let's try. Add A, B, add. Okay, invalid value. Okay, click. How do I make this disappear? Well, actually, I mean, not easy solution. I mean, either I wait for the click on the access, so the user has seen everything, or I decide that after a certain time, I make I make a refresh in any case. Okay, that is what was written in the code. I just commented it out for the moment. Okay, when I did the cut and paste. So I would say after an error happens, you wait a few seconds. You allow the user to see the situation. Okay, so the temporary update. So the green bar. And then you can reload the content from the server again. Okay, set dirty true, but in a set timeout. Okay, so you just practice a little bit with the set timeout. So after a while, we just reset the things in the interface. So let's try again. Hopefully last time. A, B. Okay. You see, after a while, it's reset. I mean, the message stays there, unless I decide I want to reset the message as well. But since I put a cross, it's probably because I want the user to have a look at the message and the user to click the cross explicitly, okay? Because it has read the message, okay? So I think it's fine to leave it there, okay? Just again, think in terms of the user using your application. You can give it to your friend and say, well, try to use this application. And you immediately see, I mean, of course, not one of your colleagues, because you're supposed to develop the application by yourself. You can try in the lab, but you can try with somebody that, I mean, is not a computer engineering expert. I mean, just using computers like anybody. Just try to use this application. If it runs into issues, well, you probably should change something, okay? Okay, good. So let's fix the application, because I think for the error handling, that's all. I hope. Let me make a check. By the way, you know that you can do a comparison, okay, between files in Visual Studio Code. Okay, select for compare one, and then you take another one, compare with selected. Okay, it's very convenient sometimes. Okay, just to make sure I didn't forget anything. I'm comparing my solution with what I did here. Okay, so of course I did a little bit things which are a bit different. I mean, more spacing and stuff. You know, double quotes and so on. But I mean, I think yeah. The answer table gets the error message. I'm not really sure why. The error message was there. Oh yeah, that's a point we need to address. I mean, this fixed the question ID. Now we will address it. We need to put the handle error everywhere now instead of the console log, right? Because that's the purpose of having the handle error. And yeah, I think that's all. And then we will look at the issue that we had. Okay, so let's just close. Okay. Oh, by the way, I mean, since I'm here this time, when you need to compare more than one solution, okay, more than one file, sorry, okay, let me leave it. That's a very useful program in Linux. I'm not sure if you know it. You need to install it. MELD, M-E-L-D. You give 2 folders, okay, and it gives you a full comparison of all files, all directory structures, and so on. Of course, the node modules we are not interested in. Let me see if I can zoom in. No, unfortunately I cannot. But you see there are blue files. If we click on them, you'll see the difference. Okay, it's very useful to see maybe the difference between your solution and the solution I provided in the lab and so on, because it doesn't limit itself to one file, but it's useful for the whole directory, all directory structure, and so on. Of course, there will be something different, but you know, just to have a look that you didn't forget anything or something is really different, it's very useful. And you can even edit and then save and so on. Okay, I will not save now, but you know, close without saving, etc. Okay. So of course binary files is useless to compare, but you know, other files, like now you see I have this question ID I added here, immediately spots it. Actually, that's the one I use when I go back to the office and make sure that what I publish is aligned to what I've did in the lectures. Okay. Anyway, let's do the fix that we're still you know, to do. We still have to do. So handle error. This is really mechanical stuff. You see the delete last time didn't have anything here. Oops, because I didn't want to spend time. But now I know what to write, right? Catch error, handle error. Okay. No, handle error. What's this? Is the function? Yes. Why does it give? Something is missing, right? Delete, catch. Oh, should be fine, right? Can anybody spot what's wrong here? Let me save it. Yeah, something wrong. Expected the colon. Yes, a parenthesis missing. Yeah. Okay. Then handle error. And that's all, right? So okay, so just make sure everything works. I mean, test things often. So try again. Okay, npm run dev, the server should be fine. Yes. So just test. So we add something. Invalid value. You forgot to fix the add, right? So yeah. Okay, save it. Again. Sorry, it takes a bit of time, but we are in line with the schedule. Okay? Okay, good. No error. Edit it. See. BBC. Yes. Upvote. Downvote. It's fine. Delete. It's fine. Okay? It should be working now. Okay, good. So let me make a commit before going on. I mean, for the exam, it's not needed that you work on the Git. Okay, you will have a repository on Git where you need to push the final solution. We will talk about the exam. I think next week is a good time. Okay, but there are already some instructions. I will publish instructions this week for the final exam. Okay, which are, by the way, the same as previous as last year. Okay, so if you are curious, just go to the last year's website and look at the instruction. Are basically the same. We're planning to follow the same system, the same rules. Okay. So let me commit what has changed, and then we can still try. No, before that, sorry. Before that, there's still one important thing, and then we will try to address what was raised by your colleague. Okay? So, so I was seeing here before that, the use effect in my solution was a bit different, right? What was the difference? Well, the difference was that first I waited for the question number 1 to be loaded, and then this question ID was actually the question, okay? Question.id, okay? Not the constant that we have here. I mean, we cannot do without this constant at the moment, because either we take a list of all questions and we just select the first one in the list. That's a possibility. Or we just need to know the ID from which we want to start. Since there is only one question in the DB, so it doesn't make any big difference. But I mean, the difference that I wanted to show you here, that in case you rely on some values that you expect to be set at a certain point, actually you need to list it in the dependency list of the use effect. Remember, any value that is used and the use effect need to be listed in the dependency list. Why? Because, I mean, otherwise it's really strange. I mean, because you want to probably rerun the callback if using some values that have changed, because the result might be different. So the value you get or the actions you get might be different. Okay? So, okay. So let's see if this works. Probably not. No, it works, but you see there's something. Object question not found. Where does it come from? Answers, request, headers, API questions, undefined answers. Okay? And then for some reasons I need to think. I mean, there's a second time the answer is the get answer is called, and that time gives us the correct result because we have the ID 1 set. Okay? So why this happens? I mean, it's really important to understand what's happening. I don't really care about this code. It could be written in a different way. I mean, the point we are discussing this code together here today is because we want to really understand what's going on with the use effect and so on. Okay? So you know what happens with the use effect. You declare, I mean, you call the use effect, you pass a callback, and you pass a list of dependencies. And then the callback is scheduled for execution later by React after the component gets rendered. Okay? If the component has been just mounted, so just appeared in the element tree, in any case, the callbacks will be called. Okay? So in our case, both the first one and the second one will be called, regardless of what I've written inside. Okay? Because it's not about what I've written inside. It's about the callback being called by React. Okay? So the first one is called, so it does get API, get question ID is fine. Okay? And the second one, it goes and say, if dirty is true, because in the beginning we declared, initialized actually dirty as true. If dirty is true, it executes API get answered by question ID, question.id. Okay? But what's the value of question.id? I mean, I'm not waiting for the first one to be executed. Okay, so putting a dependency in the list of dependencies of the use effect is not saying wait for the first use effect to be executed. Okay, oops. It doesn't wait for the first use effect to be executed. They are just executed one after the other. React puts them on the callback queue, and then when it's time, they are executed. They return a promise. So basically, they free the stack immediately. So 2 requests towards the server are issued with the values that you pass. Okay, and if it's still undefined, because actually question in the beginning it's an empty object. Okay, so an empty object has no properties. If you write question.id, question.id is simply undefined. Okay. So luckily, it doesn't create a problem in our code, but it's not probably the best solution, right? So question.id has the undefined value here. Okay. Then at a certain point, the server responds, and the promise of the get question is solved. So queue set question queue. So the state of question is changed, so this question gets actually an object which has a property named ID. Okay, and this trigger a re-render of the component because you change the state. Okay, first the reference was like the empty object. No, it was actually the empty object. The second time it's another object, the object that contains some values. Okay. And so React, after the render, decides if it needs to call the first callback and the second callback, the 2 of the use effect. But the first callback has no dependency, so it will not be called anymore. Okay, while the component is alive, and since app is always alive, it means it will never be called again. And the second one, it depends on the values in the list of dependencies. Okay, if dirty has changed or question ID has changed, it will be rerun. So dirty has not changed; it's still true because nobody has set it to false. Okay, set dirty false. No, actually, it has been set to false. Sorry. No, actually, so it has changed. Okay, but actually, question ID has been changed as well. Okay, because now question.id has a value 1. Okay, so actually there are 2 reasons why you should rerun the callback. I mean, we don't really care if it's 1 reason, 2 reason, all values have changed or just 1. React, even though just 1 value has changed, we will rerun the callback. So it rerun the callback, and it will basically reload the list of the answers. Okay. If we want to do things in a clearer way, I mean, I don't really like having this get here on undefined, because it's an error to ask something which actually it doesn't exist on the server, right? So, I mean, we can simply fix it with some code in the callback of the use effect. I mean, you cannot avoid that the callback is being called, because that's a way in which the use effect works. Okay, React works in this way, nothing else. And so the only thing you can do is decide which code you want to run. Okay, like if question.id and then dirty, that's a possibility. So just avoid calling the server if question.id is not set, so it's undefined, because you will not get anything. Okay, so save. Let's try it again. Okay, you see that you get 1, the question, actually twice. Why? Because we said it last time. We are in strict mode. Okay, so any use effect at mount time is run twice. So also the second one, see the code. Also, the second one is run twice. But both times, the if decide that you don't execute API, get answers by question ID. Okay? And then it's run a third time, but it's not mount time anymore. And this time, the if is true. And so you go in and you do get answered by question ID with the question ID. You get the response. Okay, 1 here. You get the response. You do the set of the state with the response. And initial loading false, set dirty false, and it's fine. Okay? Then you change the state. There's a re-render. So again, this value has changed. The dirty has changed. You remember last time we saw the dirty has changed. So the dirty has passed from true to false, and the callback is called again. Okay? If you don't trust me, just put a console log after the if. You will see how many console log you get. Okay? But just this time the if evaluates to false, so it's not loaded from the server anymore. Okay? Because dirty is false. Okay? That's what happens. It's really important to understand what's going on. Otherwise, you keep changing things in the if and you have no idea what's happening. Okay? Especially when the code becomes more complex. Of course, this is very simple example. Okay? But for the exam, it will probably be a little bit more complex. I've seen solutions in which there are two dirties. Dirty variables, 2 or 3. I'm not suggesting to use this approach, but sometimes when you add the states to trigger use effect, it can become complex. Okay, so try not to exaggerate if you can. Okay, so let me commit the solution. So I think week 11, I think we just changed the 2 files. Yes. Plus. So code code with add and edit. Okay. So you have it immediately, hopefully. Okay. And then we can address the question of your colleague. So recall the question was about, click. You see, it was 7. It became 9 because of the optimistic update. And then we got the response of the 8. And we didn't get another response. Okay? I don't really have a nice solution at the moment, except from the fact that maybe, you can wait for the response from the server before allowing the user to perform another action. That's a possibility. Okay? So like you disable the buttons, but make sure at a certain point they are enabled again. Okay? Because otherwise the user is stuck with a blocked application. He cannot do anything, or she cannot do anything. Okay? Or maybe you can just block the single button. Not sure if it works when you do another thing, another type of operation in parallel. I think the fact here, I would say it boils down to the fact that we are using the dirty, right? So every time we modify something, we do the set dirty, okay? And if we don't get the answer, the dirty doesn't change, okay? And so actually to really solve this issue, you need to think also what's the effect on the user experience. When you do an action, you should connect an update to the response of the action, okay? Not just a state change in the application, because otherwise, if you don't keep track of the fact that you did 2 operations instead of one, you end up with this problem. Okay, so it's like instead of doing the set dirty, you could actually have a function that does the fetch here. Okay, so isolate the part here. Okay, the get answer by question ID set answer list. Put it in a separate function and call this function, okay, in each then, okay, because in this way each time the promise is solved, you load the content again. Okay, I mean that's a possibility to solve this this issue. Okay, actually I must say I will not focus that much on this let's say concurrency problems at the exam, because I mean we think that's enough complexity in developing the application with the state, user effects, and so on, as it is. Okay, so yes.
So when you test our application with two clients,
No, I mean 2 clients is a different story. Okay, 2 clients is a different story because I mean you're not expected to know that what the other client has done. Okay. So here we did 2 actions, and actually we would like to see the 2 results. The click, sorry, +2, not +1. Okay. So with the 2 clients, if another one does +1, well, what happens depends on the order of the operations, and doesn't really, you cannot really do anything from a single client, because you would know that something else has happened on the server. So either periodically you reload something from the server, but I would say not really nice solutions, like you leave a page alone and after 1 minute it reloads the content from the server. Not really sure why. Okay, I mean we expect that web application do nothing unless we interact with the page. Okay, or it's obvious like there's a counter or something, and so the page has to be updated. So I mean when we use 2 clients to test your application is because the requirement was I mean what client 1 does 1 operation and client 2 check the operation has been done. I don't know, there's an administrator and a normal user and so on. And so I mean there is something in the text of the exam that can be tested only using 2 different clients. Okay, otherwise we usually stick to the single client. Okay, but making sure that in general the client works even if there are 2 clients. Okay, we are aware of the fact that there is this n client problem. So we don't expect you update your page if we did something with another client on the same data on the server. Okay, but I mean at a certain point, if you need to refresh the data, we expect that the additional data comes in. Okay, like let's take this example, and then we will have a break. Okay, so the reservation is the classical example where buying the same object. Okay, when 2 or more clients operate on the same data on the server side. Okay, so one does an operation and the other one does an operation on the same element on the server. It can be, I don't know, an array, so a list of rows in a table on the server, a single row, a single seat, and so on. Okay, a single object to be bought, and so on. Well, in this case, we expect that the application manages the fact that actually the server, which is the only point that can solve the concurrency problem, gives either the success answer or the failure answer. Okay, so you buy something and the server must say, okay, you bought it, and we expect that the second server, if tested, will receive, well, unfortunately somebody else has bought it, it's not available. Okay, what we don't want to see is that both sent the request and the answer was okay for both, even though it was not possible on the server because of the way in which you did the operations. Okay, you expected, I mean, that the answer was always okay, okay, because I mean the typical error is you check it's available. Yes, I'll do the operation to book it, to buy it, and so on. Okay, this is not acceptable. It has to be done in a single operation towards the server, so a single HTTP action. So the server can decide which one has arrived before, and just give it to the one that arrived before. Okay. But then, I mean, we cannot notify the other clients that this has happened. So the only way in which we will able to notify the other clients is just say, well, it's not available. Okay, like a seat in the theater plane and so on, or an object that was the last object you can buy. No more objects available. Okay. I hope I've been clear enough. I know concurrency is not an easy problem. It's the most difficult problem in computer science, right? So, but I mean, if you stick to what we saw during this course, and you always think in terms of designing good APIs in the way that we explained in the third, fourth week. Okay, so do atomic operations like you buy something. There's an API to buy, and it says yes, no. Okay, not two APIs. One check what happens, and the other perform the operation, because something can happen in the middle. If you stick to this pattern, once you have good APIs, I mean, getting the application right is probably the easiest part. Okay, because the application either see thing as being successful or not. Okay. The only thing that can happen is what we saw just before, okay? But we are quite tolerant in this regard, okay? Because this is just an issue of fixing a little bit of code in the application, deciding of, let's say, blocking the user for a while until we get a response. Sometimes it happens to you in a normal application, like a mobile application, web application, and so on. You click on something, okay, I will buy this stuff. Wait 10 seconds, please, don't do anything, right? That's the message that comes out. Why? Because otherwise it becomes difficult to handle on the client side, okay? So, I mean, we are quite tolerant for this reason, because then it becomes difficult to handle here. But the API part is the one that should be made right, and should be made right since the beginning, okay? That's why we insisted so much on the APIs, and also in the last lecture in this course, we will think in terms of solving an exam, okay? And we will not start writing code, okay? Writing code is the last thing you should do. Think in terms of what the application should show, which data is needed, and then design the APIs. Once you have the APIs, you can start, implementing something, because you already decided what to show, when to show, and what information needs to be exchanged between client and server. Okay? And once you have that, I mean, writing the code for the server and the client is basically a bit of copy pasting from these examples. Okay? I hope I've been clear enough. I would say, I see you tired, and me as well. So let's break for 10 minutes. If you have questions, we can discuss here during the break. Otherwise, later we will start talking about authentication. Okay? And then think about these things. Tomorrow I will be in the lab, me myself. Okay? Not sure about next week, but I mean, tomorrow I'm in the lab. If you have any questions about theory and these things, just feel free to ask me. Okay? Okay, so let's break for 10 minutes. Okay.